1954 was a monumental year for Japanese cinema. In April, Akira Kurosawa's 3.5-hour-long samurai epic known as Seven Samurai was released. That winter, Godzilla would be making its silver screen debut. However, between both of those major releases, Ugetsu made its way onto the scene, directed by master craftsman Kenji Mizoguchi. Japanese cinema holds some of my all-time favorites, and what I believe to be some of the best films of all time. Films like Rashomon, High and Low, Throne of Blood, Ron, Seven Samurai, which are all directed by the legendary Akira Kurosawa, which is a director I think everyone should look into. Then you have the animated behemoth of Studio Ghibli, which never missed. Except that one time. Even though these are all great films and deserve videos of their own, Ugetsu, which is the topic of today, hasn't left my mind since watching. Ugetsu is a very simple plot compared to Godzilla and Seven Samurai. Instead of samurai, we follow a farmer who has an act for pottery, and he attempts to sell his pottery to give the life he believes him and his family deserve. Instead of a giant radioactive monster destroying a city, we have human ambitions clouding judgment. Just because we have the power, the want, the desire, and the drive to do something, should we really act on those feelings without perceiving the consequences? That is the question Ugetsu asks the audience. That's the reason why I wanted to talk about it today. Ugetsu is actually based off of the novel of the same name, Ugetsu Monogatari, which includes 9 supernatural short stories. This film does indeed have supernatural elements to it, however, they don't really come into play until the 3rd act of the film. So for the most part, this is a very grounded film. The film opens with a message from the director himself, paying homage to the writer Akinari Ueda and stating how their works still resonate today with modern audiences and will only continue to grow in popularity. The film opens with a long, right-to-left pan explaining to the audiences the historical background of the film when it takes place. 16th century Japan, which is currently in the middle of a civil war. Even though the civil war is going on, we never actually get to see any battles. The film is told from a peasant perspective, bringing to light the not-so-glamorous lifestyle of being a peasant in 16th century Japan. Once the camera stops moving, we are introduced to our characters that we will follow throughout this hour-and-a-half experience. Genjiro is a peasant farmer who has a talent for making pottery, and all he wants to do is give his wife Miyagi and son Genichi the life he thinks they all deserve. A life filled without pain and suffering, one where they will never grow hungry and never need to work another day in their lives. Tobei is Genjiro's neighbor and helps him with the farming and pottery creation. He has ambitions of becoming a legendary samurai, even though he's never held a sword in his life. His wife Ohama talks down to Tobei, saying his dreams are nothing more than a fantasy. As Genjiro is about to leave to sell his pottery to a nearby town, fighting can be heard in the distance. Miyagi doesn't like the idea of him selling near the war, so she suggests going to another town and sell the pottery there. Genjiro agrees and is about to set off when Tobei whisks the cart away, stating that this is his chance to meet a samurai in the town and possibly become a samurai's protege. So, with the dismay of both their wives, they set out and sell pottery. Miyagi then talks to the village elder for advice on Genjiro's ambitions, and the elder states him and Tobei are both greedy as they are ambitious. A line that really sticks out to me in this conversation is, "A little money inflames men's greed," which, as we continue watching, will only come to fruition. Genjiro soon returns to the village, and returns with not only 0 pottery, but more money than him and his wife have ever seen in their entire lives. The money fuels Genjiro's flame to continue making pottery. Tobei found a samurai in town and proceeded to follow him. He begs to become a vassal and for him to be used in the war, but is rejected by all the samurai as he doesn't own any weapons or armor. Genjiro used the money to buy himself and his family new clothes and so much food they shouldn't have to work anymore for some time on the farms. Miyagi thinks the family should move from the village as attackers could come any day now. But Genjiro is insistent on making more pottery to sell and become even more rich, to the dismay of his wife. All of them begin working extremely hard to fulfill Genjiro's desires and greedy ambitions, even to the point of ignoring his son and acting out on his wife. Ever since he got that money, he's become a selfish and irritable man to everyone. Genjiro fills the kiln next to his house with all the pottery him and his wife spent so much time making when their village is attacked. Most of their friends and neighbors are either caught or killed by the opposing soldiers. Something the film does extremely well is never explain who or what these soldiers are fighting for, and who we should even really be rooting for. The idea of war and turning against one another is the antagonist itself in this film. The entire time Genjiro and his family are escaping, he can only think of the kiln. He stupidly decides to run back to make sure the kiln's flame did not go out, because if it does, so will his dreams and ambitions, which is a super well-used metaphor in this story. The kiln did indeed go out. However, all of the pottery finished in time, so nothing was lost. Genjiro and Tobei gather what pottery they can and return to the wives not empty-handed. The four find a boat on a river and decide to take it all the way to safety. As they cross the river, they wander upon a seemingly vacant boat. Inside holds a man dying of exhaustion, explaining bandits are treading the waters and taking everything they can in these war times. After explaining this to Genjiro, the man dies before all of them. They make their way back to shore as Genjiro suggests Miyagi takes Genichi back home as he thinks the pillaging has finished in their village, while him, Tobei, and Ohama make their way to another village to sell all the pottery. Again, with the very dismay of his wife, he sets out again, trying to make a fortune for all of them. The three found their way to a village, and the pottery is selling extremely well. A very rich and elegant-looking woman by the name of Lady Wakasa takes interest in Genjiro and his pottery, buying full sets of every type of pottery he has, and asking him to deliver all of them to her home. Tobei notices a samurai in the village and leaves the pottery stand. Ohama runs after him, leaving Genjiro to man the stand himself. Tobei buys himself a spear and armor using his share of the money. Ohama encounters samurai while looking for Tobei, and the men all take advantage of her in a nearby shrine. This all happens because of Tobei's selfish and arrogant dream of becoming a samurai. After the workday is over, Genjiro makes his way to Lady Wakasa's estate to deliver the pottery as he comes across a kimono shop. He fantasizes buying all of them to his wife, and we're treated to some very ethereal and enchanting cinematography. There are quite a few of these dreamlike sequences in the film, and they all have really neat camera tricks. After arriving to Wakasa's abode, he is welcomed inside. Her home isn't very well kept, and part of the outside seems to be falling apart. We, the audience, are treated to stellar shots of the interior of the household, and beautiful candlelit lighting is used throughout these scenes. Wakasa admires Genjiro's craftsmanship as a potter and says he has a real talent for it. He is honored by this, and the two share a drink using his pottery. Wakasa's head maid suggests Genjiro should marry Lady Wakasa, so he may continue to create these beautiful pottery pieces, and so she could fund them. At first, Genjiro refuses, but never says that he has a wife and child. Lady Wakasa throws herself at Genjiro. Genjiro, in a seduced-like state, is guided to Wakasa's room. Genjiro gives in to his urges and cheats on his wife. The same silk robe Genjiro wanted to buy for his wife, he ends up buying for Lady Wakasa. The absolute audacity of that man for doing that. That's the same kind of energy as taking your new significant other to a spot you and your ex went to all the time and act like you had never been there before. Lady Wakasa is so thrilled by this purchase, she begins to sing. And as she does, this joyful laugh can be heard in the background. Genjiro thinks this is quite peculiar. Wakasa tells Genjiro that her father died not too long ago, and she sings to his spirit to bring him peace. Lady Wakasa's maid then tells Genjiro that her clan has been wiped out because of the Civil War. She is the only remaining bloodline, which is also why they are really pressuring this marriage onto Genjiro. After sleeping with this woman, he still rejects her proposal of marriage. Lady Wakasa does eventually convince Genjiro, but only after some very well convincing in the open bath outside. If you know what I mean. Sex! This is a great time to bring up the cinematography. This film loves to use long tracking shots of the surrounding landscape to help transition between scenes. Not all of them are perfect by any means, but the final times they are used in the film absolutely dumbfound me. Genjiro and Lady Wakasa are enjoying a beautiful day by the lake, when we cut back to Miyagi and Genichi as they are still on the run from soldiers and bandits. She does eventually get ambushed by a few starving soldiers. She pleads them not to take their food as it's all for her son. Miyagi is then stabbed by one of the soldiers, almost cementing her death. But she doesn't give up immediately. The camera stays on her as she stumbles, falls, but continuously gets back up. Her son, as far as she knows, is the only one left in her life, and this pushes her through everything. She continues to stumble off screen when we fade back to Tobei. He is currently fighting in the Civil War, still not telling us what side he is on, or what they're even fighting for still. He finds one of his comrades outside a shrine with the opposing side's general. The nameless soldier beheads the general to bring to their general so his hopes and dreams can be fulfilled. Tobei obviously wants that credit for himself. Tobei then penetrates his comrade with the same spear he bought earlier in the film and takes the head to the general. Tobei asks for men, a horse, a title, and that his stories are shared throughout the land. Without hesitation, the general gives Tobei all he's ever wanted. Following the battle, Tobei rides his horse into a town with his men, and they all suggest that they should celebrate their victory, and that Tobei can regale them with all the fascinating stories he has of the war. Tobei agrees, and they all enter a brothel. Tobei begins to tell his stories as a prostitute kicks a man out for not paying. The prostitute turns out to be his wife, Ohama. Tobei is devastated to see what has become of her, and she is devastated that Tobei has gotten everything he's ever wanted, just because he left behind everyone and everything he ever cared for. Tobei vows to make right and restore Ohama's honor, which we all know can't actually be done. And yes, Tobei is trying to make right, but it's far too late for that. He's already f***ed up as much as he could. Genjiro's life, however, has been nothing but pleasant since being with Lady Wakasa. He buys another elegant robe for her, and is making his way back to the Wakasa estate when a local priest notices a shadow on Genjiro's face, the shadow of death. He utters to Genjiro not to trust Lady Wakasa. Genjiro obviously ignores these words, but lets the priest hold an exorcism on his body anyway. Genjiro returns to the house on edge with many mixed feelings. Lady Wakasa and her maids notice something as well. The guilt is building too much for Genjiro to withstand, and he finally tells Wakasa the truth. She is obviously furious. Genjiro has tainted her with his desires. Lady Wakasa tries to get Genjiro to comfort her, but can't touch him because of the exorcism. This is all when the supernatural things all come together. When Lady Wakasa's father left for the war, her and everyone else in the estate died, but they all came back with one purpose. Lady Wakasa has never known true love, so she was looking for a good man to show her the meaning of love. That man happened to be Genjiro. However, that was only because she didn't know the truth. Genjiro then grabs a blade and swings wildly at everyone in the estate, not cutting anyone, but eventually he passes out from exhaustion. Genjiro is awakened by the leader of the town and some guards. Apparently, a sacred blade was stolen from a shrine months ago, and they've been trying to catch the culprit. Turns out, the same sword Genjiro used in that last scene was the sacred sword. As Genjiro tries to tell his side of the story, he mentioned Lady Wakasa's name and her estate, and the camera then reveals that the rubble behind them was the estate. It was destroyed years ago. The guards think he's some lowly, crazy beggar, take the sword, and exit. Genjiro inspects the rubble and finds the same robes he bought Lady Wakasa. After he realizes everything he went through in that estate was not real and was the work of spirits, he wanders away, returning to his small, poor village. Genjiro wanders into his vacant-looking village. His home is somehow still standing. No one is there, however. No Tobei, no Ohama, no Genichi, no elder, no neighbors, and no Miyagi. The next segment in the film is by far my favorite, and if YouTube would let me, I'm going to play the scene out for a bit.
Miyagi. 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 遅くなった。すまなんだ。お帰りなさいませ。
Did any of you see that cut? I wouldn't blame you if you didn't, because it's so small and hidden. Watch the scene back and pay attention to the lighting. It's the best visual way to tell when the cut happens. Genjiro is so happy to see his wife and son again, he doesn't even question the fact he didn't see them the first time wandering around the house. Genjiro immediately falls asleep next to his son. The next morning, he is awakened by the village elder, and is still cradling Genichi. The elder tells Genjiro he's been looking after Genichi, and that he wandered off sometime last night. Genjiro then asks if Miyagi went to the kiln to start the day without him. This is when we and Genjiro learn that Miyagi died of exhaustion after bringing Genichi all the way back to the village, inflicted with a major wound. Genjiro can't begin to understand what had happened last night, and is sad at the fact that he did everything for Miyagi, but threw it all away because of his selfish desires. The film ends with Ohama, Tobei, Genjiro, and Genichi as they tend to the farm they all live on. The final shot of the film is another beautiful tracking shot, showing everyone working hard, just like Miyagi would have wanted. As the camera tracking stops, we land on Genichi praying to his mother's grave, as a voiceover from Miyagi plays in the background. I'm not going to play all of that because I really think this is a film everybody needs to watch. If you're a fan of films, Japanese cinema, storytelling, this is the film for you. The film is even free to watch on YouTube, but if you don't want the quality drop, hop on over to Tubi. Yes, the ad breaks are annoying, but it's better picture quality and it's free. If you have a Max account though, just watch it on there. Amazing picture quality without ads. Ugetsu is a film that will absolutely stick with me for years to come. And I just wanted to thank you all for taking the time to listen throughout all of that. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in another video. Peace.